Folks, welcome inside the Parisi Palace, high above 3773 East Broadway. This is the Jake Feinberg Show. Coming on Power Talk, thank you so much for making us part of your day today. And there are no coincidences in life. And a couple weeks ago, my brother, Steady Teddy Feinberg, flew down to Phoenix, and we got a chance to take my two daughters to their first baseball game ever and watch the Detroit Tigers defeat the Arizona Diamondbacks. And on the way back, he was like, you know, man, I need to fill my spiritual cup a little bit. And we started to stream a lot of interviews that I had done several years ago with a lot of Scaticonians, members of the camp known as Scatico. We listened to the Reverend Billy Goldner and David Paritsky and all these other people. And it triggered something in me because I was like, you know, there's no reason, there's no way I wouldn't be where I am today without Scatico. And my guest is somebody who was a dear friend of mine, was always kind of in different bunks, a little bit older. The cat was always much smarter than me, but there's always a solid bond. And the thing that makes this cat unique is that he's a player, man. He's a cat. He can really play music. And I just feel like, being that Ted got off so much on the Scaticast and these Scatico people, I felt it necessary to continue, keep the pulse, keep momentum, play through the changes, and now I get a chance to hang. Dave Diamond, welcome to the Jake Feinberg Show.
Hey, Jake. Glad to be here, man. It's great to talk to you again.
Such an honor, man. You know, did you have bandstand? You have to excuse me because you're like the first cat that I knew that ever used the word gig. You were like maybe 12 or 13 years. I mean, you were young, but when did you have like your first real bandstand engagement? And I mean, like where it wasn't just like a one-off thing, where you had a chance to get comfortable on the bandstand.
Well, you know, I had a band in college for a little while. I mean, we played at parties and stuff, but it was only a few times a year. But later on, at the end of college, I got in with these guys in Vermont where I went to college. His name was Dave Grippo, saxophone player, alto player, that used to play with Fish as part of the Giant Country Horn. And he had a band that was playing regularly every Monday night at a bar called Red Square in Burlington, Vermont. And I did my first gig with them in the winter of 1999, I believe. And I was just happy to sit in with them. A friend of mine told them I play guitar. And they said, all right, well, after your winter break, come back and sit in on a song. And I did, and they asked me to stay up the whole night, and I did that gig for 11 years.
Unbelievable. I mean, would you say it was it a stone jazz gig? What kind of music was it?
No, it was funk. It was James Brown.
Oh my God, you were vamping. You were like, oh my God.
It's, yes, you hit right on. We were vamping. It's, as far as, you know, people ask me like, oh, you know, what's the best thing about playing? I think, you know, people see I'm a guitar player and they're expecting me to say, oh, soloing. But I think getting into a groove with really amazing musicians, like in that band, like sometimes I would just close my eyes, man. It's like the closest thing to spirituality for me. Like,
dude, I love that you brought that up, because when I interviewed the late great John Abercrombie, excuse me, he said his first gig was with Johnny Hammond Smith, and you know, he said, I got the gig. I mean, I knew I could play. I had a few ideas. I could tell a couple of stories, but ultimately I had good rhythm. And he goes, in order to get a gig, you have to have good rhythm. And I got to tell you, and you can speak to this more authoritatively than me, but, you know, because of that Guitar Hero decade that we went through, and it became like this idea of like, oh, rhythm isn't sexy, you know, rhythm, which is completely, so a lot of cats wind up being able to solo, but they really can't,
Sure.
They don't have that deep, rhythmic, spiritual connection to the music. Do you feel like, did that gig help you develop it, or had you always been conscious to say, hey, I'm just going to lay that foundation? Because once you get that Freddie Green, you know, Harold Jones foundation, I don't care what kind of style of music it is, you can't move it, man. It's just, it's there and it's not going to move.
Well, I had to have it for the gig to keep that gig. So I knew it was important. So I really dug into all the old James Brown recordings. There was a Maceo Parker live record that was really popular at the time. I don't know if you remember that one. That had some good guitar on it. So I was just really getting into what it was that role brought to the band, and like why, how important it was. And I noticed that they weren't messing around. They weren't throwing fills in there. They were really just providing the pulse and finding the little spaces to hit their little chanks, and make everything work.
Did you?
So
yeah, go ahead.
Well, and something I was saying about when I think we got disconnected when you were asking about, you talk about a lot of guitar players were into like the whole rock star thing, and it was all about soloing back in the 80s and 90s when we were coming up. But I was mentioning some of the people I was listening to, like back then, like Jerry Garcia and Trey Anastasio and the Allman Brothers, and those lead players I was listening to, they all had great time.
Absolutely, dude. I love that you brought, because I mean, Garcia especially, like, the guy just was this undulating rhythm machine, But maybe the better question for Dave Diamond is, explain to cats out there, because I mean, Terry Haggerty from the Sons of Champlin, I don't know if you're hip to that band. They were by far the most, like Hags plays with a lot of cats today, younger cats, and they just can't really stay with him. So he winds up playing a lot of rhythm because nobody knows how to play rhythm anymore. And I'm just curious about, in your mind, how dedicating yourself to that foundation of the groove actually lent itself to your increasing your instrumental improvisational chops, if at all.
Oh yeah, it's great because just my sense of rhythm just improved so greatly over that time when I was in that band. I just had the privilege of playing with just incredibly talented people that had great time and were super funky. And lucky me, and I got to learn in that environment. I was by far the youngest in the band, by 20 years in some cases, and they just took me on, and they liked what I brought to it, and they allowed me to further shape it within the confines of that band, and they gave me plenty of room to solo and have fun and do all that stuff. But like I said earlier, my favorite thing was if we would play, something like Soul Power for 25 minutes.
Dude.
At a wedding.
Right.
And I would just crank out that riff, and the guys playing with me. One of the drummers in that band that I played with for many years is Russ Lawton, who is currently plays with Trey Anastasio in his solo band and has his own band.
Are you kidding me, dude? Holy cow, dude. Lawton.
Oh yeah, I played hundreds of gigs with Russ. Russ is a great guy, and there's a reason Trey plays with him. He's
clearly
rock solid. You don't have to worry about a thing. He's just the guy. He does it all. So I was really lucky to have had that.
I want to. First of all, where did you go to Middlebury? Where did you go to school?
UVM.
I see, dude. I always thought you were like on a one-way ticket to the Ivy League, but the I didn't get there either. But the thing is, Dave, can you talk a little bit about like in today's world, you talk. I hate labels, but you have this situation where cats are going into the academy and. They're learning a street language known as jazz, blues, jazz. The language has been codified into a curriculum, and a lot of these cats. There's no guarantees of gigs when you come out of the academy. Sometimes, God forbid, you wind up sounding like your professor. I just wonder how you learn to navigate between. I mean, it sounds to me like you had that gig for 2 decades or more, but. Beyond that, did you always make when did you become conscious of the idea that if I'm going to ever find Dave Diamond's individual voice, I got to find it on the bandstand? Because you did I mean, and how much of and what did you actually take away from the academy that continues to lend itself to your bands today?
Well, I'm still trying to find myself.
Absolutely, it's a forever journey, of course.
It is. It really is.
Yeah.
But I think that it's just the way I went about it. I never went to music school per se. I wanted to major in music, but I found that the music program that existed at my college at the time was just focused on things that happened 600 years ago.
Classical. So it was all classical based.
There was no jazz program until the second semester of my senior year.
Really? Are you? What? See, and just for the record, Dave and I went to school at the end of the 90s. Now, today, almost every school, but even the idea of having a jazz program, like, what is that? What, even if you had that for 4 years, I mean, Dave, like, you're the kind of guy, like, to me, like, you're a street scholar. Like, you learn how to play by ear, you learn on the bandstand.
Sure.
And you, like you said, you never even talk. So you're the perfect person to talk to. I mean, what do you think?
I mean, it's before YouTube, It's before.
Yeah, we were dial-up modems, It was like dial-up modem.
Yeah, it's before this information was readily available. So I did it. I think I was kind of a mix of the old school way. I'm sure you've interviewed plenty of people who talked about dropping the needle on the record and wearing out that spot on the record where they're trying to learn the solo. And,
dropping the needle. Absolutely.
I never had to do that, but I rewound a lot of tapes. I scratched a lot of CDs.
Holy, why didn't you have, I mean, dude, a vinyl player I only listen to vinyl, man. It's a necessity now.
Well, now I have one, but back then, I mean, that was outdated technology. What am I going to use that for?
You're talking exactly. It was always. Tell me what your advice would be to younger cats who are coming up and are horny to play music today. I mean, to me, it's just it's such a dubious thing to go into huge amounts of debt to go to school.
Oh,
and I mean, I think the thing that's depressing the most, the thing that's bothering me the most is that so many of don't get me wrong, you're learning under Billy Hart or Gary Bartz or whoever, you're doing fine. But more and more now, you're getting people who only worked, they kept getting degrees in the academy, and now they're running programs and they've never played on the bandstand. That's a big problem, man. What would be your advice to younger kids who are hungry to be authentic musicians?
I mean, I used to take tennis lessons from a guy who could barely play tennis. I found out after I played with him.
Listen, dude, you're still Aziz, man. Holy cow. What are the advantages in your mind? Like, your ears are huge. I mean, like, to me, it's so, you came up at this time that was so pivotal, and now we're flooded with so much visual material, and so much of it is so mediocre that unless you're really a seeker, you're going to get duped. I just wonder, even maybe you teach kids today, I wonder what your advice is for them as far as pursuing individual sound.
I don't teach, but I would definitely say that school, the positive aspect, the only positive thing I think about, well, there's probably more, but the positive thing about going to a music school, I would think, is just being immersed with other people doing the same thing.
Right.
Now, if you can get that without paying, for the rest of your life for that, I think you should, that's the way to go. Like, if you can get in a scene, it doesn't have to be a school, but if you get a scene, and I don't know if that exists anymore, but like, just where it's just incestuous, just people playing with each other in different groups all the time. That's the way, that's how you learn. I mean, you can get all that information from anywhere now. You can get all that information from YouTube. Like, anything I want to learn, I can get online, or I can get one of my favorite guitar players to probably teach me a lesson on Skype. Who knows? Like, I think that all that information is out there, and I think it's useful to have a background in something else. And I don't want to step on people's dreams, but I think it's important to just understand the reality of the situation.
Absolutely. I love where you're going with this. Explain. This is what I want to talk about. It's I feel like you play that gig for 20 years. Did you say I'm going to go to New York and try to make it as a full-time musician?
No, I did that gig for 11 years. I entertained, I was like in my 20s at the time, and I entertained moving to Nashville.
Interesting.
And I went down there because I love all that playing. Like, I don't love, obviously, modern pop country music, but the musicians that are making the music down there are just top notch.
Can you drop some names? I mean, I'm familiar with Kerrigan, and I just interviewed Norbert Putnam. Who are some of the younger cats that you get off on? Studio cats.
The only younger guy I really know of right now is that guy. There's a couple. There's this guy Daniel Donato down in Nashville.
Right.
But like the studio people there are still the same people that were doing it. Like Brent Mason. He's one of the bigger names, like probably the biggest name. He's been on, thousands of recordings. But I know out west there's this one younger guy, maybe he's around my age. His name is Andrew Sanowiak. I think that's how you say it.
Whoa, I don't know that.
And he's the guy out there in L.A. He's playing all the Disney soundtracks. And, like, he just gigs when he wants to at the places out there like the Baked Potato, and I've heard some clips of him playing live, and it's just mind-blowing how great he is. And he's making a living playing Disney music.
Explain, you toyed with the idea of Nashville. Ultimately, the studio scenes are, there was a lot of work to go around, 50 years ago. You could get ahead or at least make a living playing jingles and commercials, and there was plenty of sessions to go. Exactly. And but the reality is it's so there's such a supply and demand issue. Is that the reason that you weren't sure if you could actually break in?
I was kind of optimistic that I would be able to break in. I knew what my expectations were. I knew that, like, I was thinking, all right, so maybe I'm going to go have to intern somewhere. I'm going to have to get some record producer coffee for a few months. I'm going to have to do something. Like, it might not even be playing guitar. It might just be something else in order to get my foot in the door. But I went down to visit the place, and it's a beautiful city. Problem was, when we landed, I instantly had the flu.
Really?
And I was just sick as a dog for my entire visit.
Not a good vibe, dude.
It's not Nashville's fault, but it just happened. I got off the plane, and next thing you know, I was just bedridden for a few days. I had a friend down that lived there who was a Katrina transplant from New Orleans, and he was going to show me around, and I stayed at his place. And lucky enough, he was able to just let me sleep in a bed in his house for 3 days while I recovered. But he was working in recording studios in Nashville, and he was going to show me around, and he potentially would have been like one of my ways in. But I was just too sick, and I didn't get anything good done. And I didn't take it as a sign, but I was also starting to date my future wife at the time, and Nashville wasn't high on her list. And I felt like she was more important to me than taking a chance on Nashville. So I put that one away.
I respect it, man. I respect it a lot,
yeah.
and I really do think it's like it's one of those things. I for a long time, I've done several interviews with Krishna Das, the Kirtan chanter, and he talked about. I used to think that cats were playing music, especially the music I love the most, which is just, going for it, playing beyond what going over the edge, so to speak. And I used to think that, musicians were doing it for some sort of state of bliss, and Krishna Das he's like, I don't chant for bliss. He's like, I chant to fucking live. And, so in some cases, I'm like, if you didn't have your future wife in the picture, I guess what I'm saying is, even though you have get a specialty in another degree, be able to sing for your supper, pay your bills, because it is a harsh reality. Do you need music in your life to live?
I have to do it, but I don't have to do it for a living. It doesn't have to be the only thing.
I just want you to, I want you to explain why you have to do it.
I'm it's hard to find words. It's just, and I'm not even doing I'm not playing at amphitheaters or anything. Even just to go rehearse,
Yeah.
is just joyful for me.
So it brings joy. It brings you can be a better husband, father. I mean, that's what I'm talking about. It's like this need to feed your soul. I think in this time, it's musicians. I don't care whether you're playing Jack's Deli, or Riverboat Amphitheater. Musicians are as important as medical doctors in the time we're living through right now.
Yeah, and I don't care if anybody even comes to my gig. Like I'm gonna try to promote them, but I don't care. I just want to do it. Like I just have to do that thing with the. I'm not a solo performer, so it's a group thing for me.
We have a game on this program, Brother Diamond, called Name That Voice, and I don't expect you to know who this is, but just pay attention. Pay attention to the content, right, and we'll come back and break it down.
All right.
Yeah, I was, and also bebop, and there were, there was a kind of fluent interchange between idioms going on. I mean, you have to consider James Jamerson, who was the iconic R&B bass player, considered himself a jazz musician and kind of started recording at Motown grudgingly. He wanted to be Paul Chambers, just like everybody else, and the vocabularies were cross-referencing all the time. The early R&B drummers like Panama Francis, for instance, were veterans of the big band scene, and just kind of moved into the recording studio because there was a window of opportunity there, because there was money to be made, and because the music wasn't bad, it wasn't inauthentic, it wasn't exactly jazz, but it was it was deeply moving, heartfelt music, and there was no dishonor in playing that music at all. I'm deeply grateful that I experienced that, and just as I'm sure Coltrane was grateful that he walked the bar at one time. It's good for you.
Well, Brother Diamond, that was my first interview with the legendary bass player Steve Swallow. You know Swallow?
Wow, sure, yeah.
So I mean, you dig my. I mean, I've been deep in I've been burrowing deep, Diamond, for 11 years now, and to like connect with someone like Steve Swallow, where I kind of, the thing about Swallow, Scotty LaFaro. I know you're not a upright bass player, electric bass player, but
I am an upright bass player.
You play. You're an avatar. Who am I talking to?
I have two bass gigs this week, and then 2 guitar gigs next week.
Okay, so this is the perfect question, and we'll put a wrap on set 1 because we have to do set 2. But I kind of wanted you to talk about, because when I listened to Scotty LaFaro at the Village Vanguard with Bill Evans and Paul Motion, Diamond, and I listened to that on analog, by the way. Every time I put in side A and side B, it always sounds different. And it's this idea of the rhythm section playing melodically, breaking up time and form. And I just want to get your concept about the idea of never playing the same song the same way once.
Yeah, that's the kind of stuff I'm into.
Yes, I knew it, dude. Then go riff on it, Dave. I love this shit.
Yeah. I think that there is a place for playing the same thing, all the time, every way. But my preferred way, and I just saw Steely Dan the other day, for example.
Right.
They're playing all those songs, from their records that but they're mixing it up, and every night. Like, they might play the same arrangement every night, but they're going to do different things every night. And that's the thing I love about all improvisational music. Bill Evans, The Dead, everything. Like, they're trying different things out, and it's not just one person trying. It's the combination of people doing things and the instantaneous like meshing of it all, you know.
I just like I like the idea of going for it, and maybe you crash and burn. If the audience will really probably not pick up on it anyway. It's just when I listen to those rhythm sections, Swallow and Roy Haynes, Motion, LaFar, it just never sounds the same ever. It's almost. I just wonder the antecedents, how you ultimately it's the people that you surround yourself with that you trust, that you can actually take chances and be vulnerable to get to that place, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that helps a lot. You know, I'm definitely gonna do that with people I've been playing for a long time, and you know, you could tell that LaFar on Motion and Bill Evans were just, I'm pretty sure that's all they did. All the time.
No, I mean, so you're telling me, Diamond, you have two. You're playing upright at a gig? I got to come to that gig, man.
No upright. No upright. I don't know.
I was like, dude, that upright would be menacing, dude.
That's the first instrument I ever played, though.
Really?
That's the first instrument I ever
You played the bass fiddle? Holy cow, man.
When I was 9 years old, when you knew me.
Dude, Bunk 3, Todd Fass, where was the bass fiddle at camp, man? That's unbelievable.
I think it was more like Bunk 6 time. But
yeah, that's right. That's right.
When they... When in third grade, when in music class, they had a day, I remember. They said, all right, well, everybody pick an instrument to play. And everybody went for violins and saxophones, and I just found the biggest thing in the room. And, you know, I was too small for it, so they put bass strings on a cello for me.
Yeah, that's like, dude, the same. Dude, they did the same. I interviewed David Lindley several times. They did the same thing because he was playing upright. They did the same thing for him.
Oh yeah,
he was too small. Yeah,
fantastic.
Yeah, so you were playing. So aside from your day job, you're also playing how many? Maybe a couple gigs a week or so.
Not that much. I think this summer has been extra busy. Gig-wise, I think the COVID reaction, people are like, bands are in more demand now all of a sudden.
Yeah, people are horny to fucking liberate through rhythm, dude.
Yeah, like I guess bars are more into bands than DJs again now.
Thank God. Dude, I mean, no, that to me, you're making, you know, Diamond. Let's do this. Let's just let's do another when you're settled somewhere, and we'll cook for like a full hour because we really have to dive in. We're channeling the same frequency, man.
Oh yeah, I could talk to you forever, man.
Yeah, man. Yeah, and honestly, I was just gonna say before I let you go, what did Camp Scatico mean to you in terms of like when you look at your life and how you've sort of taken on obstacles and overcome adversity? Would you be where you are without Scatico?
No way. I think about it. I would imagine it goes through my mind daily. Yeah. Some lesson I learned there, or some experience I had there, every day of my life. I'm an old guy like you now.
No, we're young at heart though, baby. And Diamond, man, it's so great, dude. It's so good. We'll keep doing this, man. I want to get you on the bandstand 6 nights a week, 3 sets a night, dude. You know, playing Swallow. Once he went to a NAMM show with Gary Burton, and he was playing the upright, and he went to this one station, and they had this electric bass, and he kind of thought it was almost like he was whoring himself out, but he went in there, and the minute he picked up the electric bass, he said his hands just fell in love, and he never put it down. So
yeah, it's fun, man. It's fun.
Well, no, the next step is to also get.
Yeah.
No, it's just the next step is to also, I want to come see in person, drive some content too. You know, I recognize like it's part of your soul, and it's really cool that you have, you know, the rudiments in place because, you know, you can pick up gigs and you can keep feeding your soul, and it's going to make, and your kids are going to, it's going to have a profound effect on your kids too, and you already can see that, which is beautiful.
Yeah, I was almost lucky in the fact that, like, I forget the example you said before, but I don't have to do it as the only thing I do. Like I don't know, I see myself as fortunate in that way. Because,
yeah, dude, you know why? Because you can choose. You're not like, you don't have to play the bar mitzvahs and the weddings to sing for your supper. You can pick and choose the gigs.
And I did that.
Absolutely,
yeah,
no, and there's nothing, but that would be, that's more of like, yeah, and that's if you're sort of taking that music track only. That would be like if you were like, I'm not getting married. I'm staying in Nashville. Whatever it is. I mean,
Right.
It's.
Well, I'm just
Brother, go enjoy
glad
some
I don't-
go enjoy some softball, baseball, and I'm gonna be in Colorado, but the following week let's cook the groove again.
All right, man. Travel safe.
Yeah,
Talk
much
to you soon.
love, dude. Good to hear you.
You too.
Peace.
All right, bye.
Bye. Great to catch up with a Scataconian and decorated musician Dave Diamond. I gotta go. 3 interviews. We'll see you later.
What shall we say? Shall we call it by name? Rolling out the angels, dancing on the pier. Water bright as the sky for which you came. And the name is on the earth that takes it in. Will I speak and stand aside the rain?